Suho observed the process of shadow extraction, but it seemed much less impressive than he had anticipated. He noticed that newly extracted shadow soldiers appeared somewhat weaker than they had been in life, and interestingly, they even seemed smaller. When he asked Beru if this was typical, the ant-like shadow nodded and confirmed that it was. Curious, Suho inquired how much weaker they became after extraction, wondering if it was only a slight difference. Beru explained that they lost a small portion of their strength and would disappear after a day unless stored using the shadow storage skill. Upon hearing this, Suho was surprised and asked why he didn't have that ability. Beru speculated that it was because the intelligence stat and Suho's level affected his shadow authority, a skill that could become much more powerful in the future. When Suho noticed Beru looking downcast, he reassured him with a gentle, "Don't worry." Then, realizing that he hadn't eaten in 2 days, he asked how they could leave the dungeon. Beru explained that the shadow dungeon key could be used to exit at any time. Without delay, Suho chose to leave. After exiting the dungeon and eating a hospital meal, Suho reflected that even something as simple as hospital food tasted incredible after such an exhausting ordeal. He recalled his 3 missions. First, he had to protect Earth from outer space monsters. This meant entering dungeons and hunting monsters, which would allow him to level up and grow stronger, thereby making the planet safer. Second, he had to find his mother, Mrs. Hine. Although there wasn't a clear method for doing so yet, Beru reassured him that hunting monsters could eventually reveal a clue about her whereabouts. Lastly, Suho had to help Beru recover his lost power. Beru lamented that his power was currently reduced to that of a low-ranking soldier. He explained that in his weakened state, he had to resort to an old method of absorbing magic and knowledge by consuming magical beings. Although inefficient, it was his only option until Suho could provide a better source of energy. This meant one thing. They had no choice but to enter more dungeons. Later, Suho decided to visit the Hunters Association to measure his magic level and obtain a hunter's license. He wondered what rank he might achieve, and even entertained the thought that he could be an S rank. However, when the measurement results came in, he was classified as an E rank awakener with a magic level of 46. Disheartened, Suho reflected on how his strength stat had grown at the expense of his magic level. Even Beru tried to console him, noting that his combat abilities more than made up for his low rank. But Suho still felt discouraged. Could an E-rank hunter like him really protect the Earth? Beru reminded him that he could level up, which was something other Awakeners couldn't do. Despite this, Suho worried about his prospects, knowing that E-rank and F-rank hunters were rarely accepted into raiding parties. Getting into dungeons would be a challenge in itself. Suho recalled that dungeon raids had a clear division of labor. The strike squad handled monster hunting, while the hauling team collected monster carcasses, and the mining team extracted dungeon resources. Unlike the strike squad, the hauling and mining teams often accepted low-rank hunters, which meant Suho could still enter dungeons by joining one of these teams. A few days later, Suho met Lim Dog-yoon, a teaching assistant at the Korean University of Arts and an E-rank awakener. Grateful for Lim's help, Suho thanked him for introducing him to a dungeon-related job. Lim seemed hesitant and brought up the incident at the university, where he had run away in fear during a monster attack. Feeling guilty, Lim apologized, explaining that, as an E-rank hunter, he had followed the Hunter Association's guidelines, which advised low-rank hunters to run when faced with magic beasts. Suho reassured him, saying there was no shame in following the rules. Lim was shocked to learn that Suho was also an E-rank awakener. He remembered seeing Suho fight a magic beast on the rooftop during the attack and questioned whether he had imagined it. Still, he was impressed by Suho's bravery. Beru, however, expressed concern. In Suho's current state, Beru believed it was necessary to stay by his side to ensure his safety. Lim noticed Beru and asked if Suho had awakened as a summoner. When Suho confirmed this, Lim admitted that many E-rank hunters didn't even have skills. His own skill, for instance, was limited to running. Suho teased him by saying that it explained why he had been so good at fleeing. Lim laughed nervously, realizing that Suho had just crushed him emotionally without even trying. Soon after, Suho and Lim entered a dungeon for the first time. Suho noticed that only wolf-type magic beasts had been appearing, which was disappointing since wolf pelts were not very valuable. The leader of the hauling team reassured them that sometimes monster corpses contained essence stones, so it was worth continuing. Suddenly, one of the miners called out, saying that he had discovered something. The group followed him to an ancient-looking structure hidden within the dungeon. The ruins seemed strange, and Suho's detection skill wasn't picking up any signs of magic beasts. Some members suggested leaving the dungeon to request backup, while others speculated that the ruins might contain treasure. They were hesitant at first, wary of traps, but when one of the hunters, Kim Yong-jun, spotted a weapon, he couldn't resist. Ignoring warnings to be careful, he reached out and grabbed it. At first, it seemed as though nothing had happened. Kim laughed, bragging that there were no traps after all. But before anyone could relax, an ominous voice filled the dungeon. It demanded to know who had dared to covet the sword of the Monarch.